Hey guys, I'm back with a new video. In this video, let us learn about constructors in Java. Now what is a constructor? A constructor is a special method that gets called when we create a new instance of a class. This looks like we are invoking a method, and actually we do have a method with this very name in a class. We don't create it, but the Java compiler will automatically create this method, and this method is what we call as a constructor. So constructor method is used to create a new object or an instance. But till now we have been doing all the initialization stuff using the methods of the class, which comes under bad design. So now we will see how we can do the initializing stuff for the new instance using a constructor method of a class. Now let us understand the responsibilities of a constructor function. Now the job of the constructor is to initialize our fields to their default values. So if I talk about numbers, they are given an initial value of 0. For booleans, they are gonna be false by default. And for reference types, it is going to be null. So this is the default value for numbers. This is for booleans. And this null is for reference types. So let us see how we can create a constructor, and in the next video we will define a complete class that uses the constructor to define a new instance based on the blueprint that we define in the class. So to sum it up, whenever we are creating an instance, some piece of code will be executed automatically to perform initialization. Now this piece of code is nothing but the constructor, right? Hence the main objective of the constructor is to perform initialization for the newly created object. Now let us create a class and see how we can define the constructor function for it. So let me clear this up. Now in order to create a constructor, we first need a class. So let us define a class student and then a pair of curly braces. So this defines our entire class. Next we need to define some fields. So let us say int marks, let us say string name, next integer roll number. Now in order to define the constructor, we need to use the class name, which is student. So here we can say student. Now make a note here that the constructor method is not going to have a return type, not even void. Then you need to add a pair of parentheses, and here we are going to have our parameters. So let me add some parameters. So first one will be name, second one is say marks, and the third one is the roll number. And now let us define our curly braces like this. So here we are creating a constructor that takes in 3 arguments to basically perform initialization for the new instances that are based on the blueprint that we define inside this class. So in this constructor, we want to initialize the fields, these fields, based on the values that we receive as arguments. Now there are 2 ways to do this. One way is to write the code like this. So this dot name and set this to name that we are receiving right here. Then this dot marks and set this to marks, and this dot roll number and set this to roll number. So here this refers to the instance that we are working on, and on that instance we are setting the name property to the name argument that we are receiving right inside the constructor, and same for other fields. So this is what a typical constructor looks like with arguments. Now if we don't create a constructor, Java compiler will automatically create one for us, which is called as the default constructor. And it will initialize all the fields of the class with their default values. So for the default case, when we don't create a constructor ourselves, the default value for marks will be 0. For name it will be empty quotes. And for roll number it will be 0, right? So this is for the default constructor case. If we don't define this one, our normal constructor. Now let us talk about the rules that we need to follow while defining a constructor for our class. So let me clear this up. Now the very first one is that the name of the class and the name of constructor must match with each other. Name of class and constructor must match each other. The second one, as I already mentioned, that a constructor doesn't have a return type, not even void. Constructor does not have a return type, not even void. The next rule is that the only modifiers that are applicable for a constructor are public, private, protected, and default. Now if we use any other modifier with the constructor function, then we will get a compile time error. So this was all I wanted to cover about constructors in this video. If you liked the video, do give it a thumbs up or comment down below if you have any query. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and let's catch up in the very next one.